Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. I'm John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Before we get to our interview, if you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. Please also consider going to our website and donating $20.24 for our 2024 fundraising campaign. Visit the Film Florida merchandise page at filmflorida.creator-spring.com to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, and more. All merchandise proceeds go to the Film Florida Filmmaker Grant and Scholarship Fund. Based in Miami, Marco Mall is the executive producer of the Florida Film House, the founder of Worldwide Urban Distribution, First Take Youth Program, and Urban Film Festival, and an executive with the Urban Streaming Network. Marco has spent more than a decade mentoring young talent, developing an in-house team of filmmakers, and vertically integrating their business from service productions to their own 6 feature films. We talked to Marco about all of these endeavors and more on this episode of the Film Florida podcast. Here's my conversation with Marco Mall. Welcome to the Film Florida podcast, Marco.
Thanks for having me, John. Happy to be here.
So let's kind of start at your beginning. What's your backstory? Where'd you come from?
So I'm originally from Miami. I went to school here, grew up here, went to school here. Then I left to go to college in Tallahassee. Got into the music business, found an artist named T-Pain, created a record label called Nappy Boy. We toured the world for about 4 or 5 years doing music, had a great time, met a lot of great people. I took a lot of that information and I parlayed it into developing content. In the music industry, I got a little frustrated in the fact that you really don't have as much creative control over your project as you would like to. Especially I wasn't an artist, but then also even he only had a minimum amount of creative control, right? So I decided I want to go into content development where I was a little bit more free to express my opinions and try to make an influence on the world. So then I came back to South Florida. I opened up Florida Film House with my partner, Vladimir Rouillon. That was 14 or 15 years ago now. We moved into our studio in Wynwood, Florida Film House, which we've been at now for 13 years. And from there, we have shot a bunch of feature films. We created a youth program, film festival, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So that's kind of like my background and a little bit of my forefront.
But you also have a little bit of time at Miami-Dade College where you were in pre-med. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, originally I was going to school for pre-med in college, right? So I was all excited about being a doctor. And pharmacology was exciting to me. In different medical fields, I was trying to figure out which one was going to be my space. But then when I started working in the hospital and I did a couple of years, like working in the hospital and working in pharmacy and just working in different fields. And I did all my prereqs and I got actually accepted into a couple of colleges for medical, right? So, but then I was kind of like realizing at that point that I was more of a businessman. I wanted to be more dealing with people face to face. And I didn't like all the restrictions of being in the hospital. And it just, it was cold and I just started to feel like it wasn't really for me. So then I transitioned more into business at that point. And then I went to Florida A&M School of Business, which I think is one of the most phenomenal school of business. I mean, they really allow you they get you internships with huge corporate 50, corporate 500 companies. So you get a real feel for corporate. If that's what you want to do corporate. I went into entrepreneurship, but I was still able to parlay a lot of that knowledge and hands-on information I got working with corporate companies into my entrepreneurship efforts.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story to see that shift of, you don't see that many pre-med to music to film necessarily. So that's pretty interesting. Now, you mentioned a couple of your main initiatives. Let's kind of go through them so everybody gets a better sense. Let's start with Florida Film House. Tell us what that is, where it came from, and tell us about the company.
Coming out of the music space, I had a lot of very strong relationships in the the Black hip hop urban space. Okay. Right. And I met a director when I was in the music space that was a Latin director that was like really strong in the Latin space. And in the Latin space, Latin urban music videos look just like kind of like Black urban music videos, except they were shot for like half the price. Right. So I started working with him a lot on a lot of our content development for the record label. And, I told him that I used to actually have a TV show back in college as well. And I was telling him, I was like, I used to be in content. I love content. So as me and him started working together on developing content for my artists and for the label, we then decided to partner up and create Florida Film House. Now, I'm also Latin as well. So I'm also half Cuban. He's Dominican.
Okay.
We both have a passion for urban and for helping people that have stories that have never been able to tell their stories come out, right? So we said it, let's work together and let's shoot movies. Well, at the beginning, we really couldn't shoot movies, right? Because we didn't have the resources for it.
Hmm.
And if I went to anybody and asked them to say $500,000, they looked at me crazy because I hadn't done it yet.
Right.
And so therefore we had to basically build our business through music videos, commercials, and all types of content development, and just raise our capital at the same time, develop our team through young interns that we were developing. And over time, we got ourselves in a position where now we had our own lights, our own cameras, lenses, all the gear that you need. And we had a team, and we had we made some money. So we were able to put a little bit of money aside and start developing our own content.
Okay.
But it was a long process. It was a very long
Sure.
process.
Right, because
Yeah,
you have to do a whole lot of work for hire before you have that kind of nest egg to start working on your own IP.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, another one of your initiatives is worldwide urban distribution, which I think that is relatively newer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so worldwide urban distribution was birthed from the fact that when we first made our first movie, A Miami Love Story, about 7 years ago, I went to all the different markets. We had a very, very smart film commissioner here in Miami named Sandy Leiterman, right? Who was
Yep.
like always been a source of knowledge for me, right? So I came to Sandy and said, yo, Sandy, I just shot this movie. Now I'm trying to get distribution. She told me, go to AFM, maybe go to EFM, maybe go to Cons, but you got to get out there and meet the distribution company so you can possibly get distribution contract. So that's what I started doing. As I was doing that, I learned a lot, and I realized that it's a very aggressive market and it's hard to trust people with your content, because once you sign your content to them, it's hard to manage what's going on with it, and it's hard to manage how much money is really being made from your content.
Yep.
So the first deal I did, it didn't go very well for me. It was going well because I had a bunch of deals in place, but my consultant consulted me to go with the specific company. It was a big distribution company where we never got a dollar from them,
Mm.
right? And that's when I realized that, man, like if I got jerked for my movie, I did all this research, I went to all these markets, I had hundreds of meetings, and I still got jerked. Once again, I think that there's a lot of people out there probably getting jerked.
Yeah.
There's a need for this, right? So then as I started learning more about it, I started saying, okay, well, the only person I know I can trust is myself, right? So therefore, I created a distribution company. For one, help me, I push my content through it, but then also I push my friends' content through it, and young filmmakers that I know need help, and that's how we got into distribution space.
Cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. And talk about the importance of, like, you were on the one side where you didn't know who to trust, but now you're on the other side where you're trying to make sure that all of your content providers trust you.
right. Well, what it comes down to is, okay, so streaming is becoming like the main funding source in independent filmmaking, right?
Right.
I'm not going to say like TV and stuff, but independent filmmaking, people that shoot their own content and they want to monetize from it, you're going to make the majority of your money from streaming. For you to have a relationship directly with, say, an AVOD company like a Tubi or Freevee, that's not very likely. You're going to have
Right.
to go through a broker, right? We're going through a broker. You got to be very careful. Once again, if you go through the wrong broker, you never see your numbers and you probably never get your money. So a lot of times, what I'm even doing now as a distribution company is I'm finding the right brokers, building a relationship with them, and then leading my people to that in that direction, just to make sure that they're as safe as possible in my eyes.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not even so much like, I mean, we do monetize, but it's not even there's many deals where we don't even take a percentage. I just give the relationship, because depending on the margins, it might not be worth it. And I just want to see the filmmaker do well.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about is something that's really cool. The First Take Youth Film Program. Tell us what that is.
So the First Take Youth Film Program is a film program that me and my team came up with because we saw that it would be really influential to our community, right? As a kid, me growing up, I played sports. And the only time I ever saw groups of people that looked like me together, working together as a unit, was either in sports, like when I played football, like all the coaches, or in church, right? Like those are the
Okay.
only places really
Yeah.
where you see like groups of Black men or brown people working together in a unit, growing up in these communities, right? So I said, man, Like, I saw how kids were seeing, like we'd go places, we'd literally be filming, say like a music video in the middle of Wynwood, and it'd be 30 of us. And people, like random people, would just stop to watch us in amaze. Like other black people, like, wow, look at these people working together. Wow, this. And I remember like older women coming getting us drinks and go, you guys, they're very, encouraging us to, go. And then kids would see us and they'd be inspired. So I was like, yo, let's start a youth program and let's get a bunch of these kids together from like these different programs, like Gang Alternative and different programs that, have kids that, haven't seen this, and we might be able to motivate them.
Yeah.
Right. So we did the first one. I remember we did the first one in Overtown, and we had about 50 kids, and there was about 25, 30 filmmakers. Everybody volunteered their time pretty much. I mean, I paid for like gas, just help people out. And I, of course, had to pay food and just little stuff like that. But basically, everybody came in there. We had like 5 red cams. We set the kids up in groups of 10, did workshops, and we taught these kids how to make a short film in 1 week.
Mm.
Some of these short films went on to win awards as film festivals, and they came out amazing. But the kids were telling their stories. And at the end of the week, when these kids were on stage talking about the experience they had, I mean, everybody in the crowd was crying. I mean, I'm talking about 200 people in the crowd. Everyone's crying. I'm trying to host. I could barely hold myself together. You know what I'm saying? And it was just powerful. And then there was a Commissioner Keon Hardeman of the city of Miami at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was there, and he was like, yo, he's like, yo, like, who's doing this? And, it was like, we're doing it, like Florida Film House, right? And he was like, yeah, but who's paying for this? And I remember him saying that. It was like, I didn't even understand the question at the time, because I didn't understand not-for-profit. So I was like, I mean, who else we're paying for it? Like, who else is going to pay for it, right?
Right.
He's like, look, next time you do something like this, I help out because this is good for the community. This is what I do. I'm a commissioner.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. So the next time we did it, I called them up a week before, and I was like, hey, I'm about to do that program again. You told me to call you. Let me know if you want to. He's like, yo, Mark, you got to give me more time. So then he was like, look, I'm going to put you with a woman, and she's going to help you with this, right? So he put me with a publicist named Yvette Harris. And Yvette then started like really showing us how to develop our 501c3, how to get into not-for-profit space, like how to do things like get organized with that space. Because we were filmmakers. We were not philanthropists. Like, we were philanthropists, but we were not like not-for-profit business thinking people. And then from there, Keon Hardeman has been able to bless us with the Dorsey Library, where we do an after-school program with Touching Miami with Love, and we teach First Take there. And now we also do it in Homestead, Florida City, and we also do it in Sistrunk as well.
Wow. So it's grown quite a bit.
Yes, and it's beautiful because we probably, I would say we're able to help somewhere between 400 to 500 kids a year get some kind of film experience, like hands-on, where they're actually, getting to see enough where if that's something they want to do, they're able to, start going in that direction.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, the last thing is the Urban Film Festival. What's that?
Okay, so the Urban Film Festival was created either 8 or 9, I think we're going on our 9th year this year. The same year we did First Take, we did Urban Film Festival. And the Urban Film Festival was birthed from the fact that when we finished, we had 3 feature films that were done, right? And we were putting them in film festivals. I guess it was about 8 or 9 years ago, right? So we're putting them in film festivals, and as we're putting them in film festivals, we're not getting in. We're like shocked because we think our movies are like phenomenal, right? Like we spent money on them. We had great talent, great cameras, great editing. So we're thinking like, wow, how are our films not getting in any film festivals? So then once again, we didn't get in a big one that comes here to Miami, right? That we really thought we were going to get into, right? So we didn't get into that film festival. That's when we realized that a lot of these film festivals cater to a certain audience, even though they might be saying they're like, Black or brown film festivals, they're catering to a market that we weren't, right? And we felt, my team and I felt like we need to do something for the urban filmmakers, right? Like the young up and coming urban edgy filmmakers, right? Give them an opportunity to grow into the filmmakers they can be. We created, I remember in June we thought of it, and in September we created it about 8 or 9 years ago, right? So, and it was a huge blowout turnout, right? And that's when we knew it was such a demand. And then from there, we've invited like all the cool people that we meet throughout our journeys. We've invited them to come, and it's rare that people say no unless they're really not available. And they come and they volunteer their time. And, Romeo Miller's been a longstanding partner on it. Alan Maldonado has been a longstanding partner, and a list of many other filmmakers and they all just come and really give back to the community. And so it's a free film festival. We normally do about, anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500 people. It's 3 days and it's free. Like we want it to be free, free, free. Like we don't want, and it's really, the thing that's unfortunate to me is sometimes I go into like the panels and they're not full. And
Right.
it's like, the people that are on the panel are so phenomenal and they're here and they're free and they want to meet you and they want to give you their phone number and they want to stay in contact with you. These are real cool people that really do this, that if you really want to do this,
Yeah.
we're bringing it to you. I think that festival's going great, but I really, really hope that people can really, like, I'd rather have like the 300 seats in the Lyric Theater full every year. Sometimes it's not, but I do think that we have affected a lot of filmmakers and we've helped a lot of filmmakers. And I think it's going really well.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
And now I know you didn't create all of these different things like self-serving. I mean, I know you well enough that that's not what you did, but you have now created an entire cycle within the industry. You have the youth that you are working with and developing. You have your own company that does your own content as well as work for hire. Then you have the film festival side of thing, and then you have the distribution afterwards. So I mean, you really have made an entire ecosystem
Ecosystem. Yeah.
for the industry.
Yeah. Originally from the very beginning, like I'm talking about day one when I want to start a film company, I always thought about vertically integrating from this, like where do you start from the bottom and how you make your way all the way to the top and make a cycle where you water yourself and you kind of create your own ecosystem.
Right.
So that, I mean, to me, that's the kind of stuff I learned in business from the beginning. And I brought that type of information and knowledge into what I was doing from the beginning. It was, so even like the film festival, even though we did it at that time, it was already written from day one on our 5-year projection, right? The youth program was written really from day one to, in my mind, I knew I always wanted to, because from the beginning, even our filmmakers were college kids that we were developing, right? Because when a lot of this is some years ago, right? Like I said, it's been probably like 14 years or so. So back then, it was harder. This market was a very, very Latin Hollywoodish and commercial type, European commercial type market, right?
Okay.
There wasn't as many music videos. There wasn't as much urban content being shot here. So for a lot of young, say like Black kids that did not speak Spanish, it was hard for them to get work here in South Florida because there just wasn't a lot of that type of production being done. And a lot of the productions that were being done, if they were like, say, like majority Latin crews, they were speaking Spanish on set. It's understandable because that's what we're comfortable with.
Mhm.
But if you don't speak Spanish, it's hard for you to get on those crews, right?
Right.
So for a lot of young kids that were coming in out of college, even going into college, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for them, they felt. Florida Film House became that space where you could come there, you could intern, you could learn, you could become really good at your craft, so good at your craft that you can stand next to anybody and perform, right? And you get that real hands-on experience. And that is where we've probably put hundreds of kids into the industry. But that's where our team started. Like that's where we created our team from. A lot of these young guys that came in,
Mm-hmm.
they've been with us now for 11 and 12 years. I have a guy named Ito and his brother Kufre. Ito's been with us for 12 years. Kufre's been with us for 10 years. Lewis has been with us 13 years. Like these guys were kids when they came in and now they're seasoned professionals now, right?
Yeah.
And we even have a couple kids now that have come in through First Take. So the First Take students now work for Florida Film House, and they'll go on to do beautiful things as well, right? And that's kind of like the ecosystem we created, because one, it nurtures the community here. It helps us because we stay fresh with this young talent that kind of keeps us with all the cool stuff and kind of keeps us up to date. It's just like I said, it's like one of my kids, John Dell, he teaches the youth program now. So he was in the youth program 3-4 years ago. Now he's a professional, and now he's teaching also the youth program.
That's cool.
That's the cycle, right? It's cool, right? So he's making money and he's helping kids.
Yeah.
The next group of kids. So that's kind of the system that we wanted to create from the beginning. And that way also you're in control, like say like on the monetization side, with controlling the distribution, you're less likely to get, kind of jerked.
Right.
You take a couple of those lessons, you take a couple of hits on the chin, and you're like, whoa, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Now, as kind of the overall executive producer, founder of all of these different things, you talked about the growing team that you have at the Florida Film House. And I know you well enough to know that if you could, you would help everybody, but it's just not possible. Talk about that approach that you and your team take about figuring out which projects and which people to really take under your wing versus the ones that you really wish you could, but you just can't do everything?
We like to give people the space to get in, like basically this like this. Florida Film House Pre has a pretty open door policy, right? When it comes to talent coming to work in with us, and the thing is, you might not fall right in. It's like every kid now they say, "What do you want to be?" I want to be a director. I
Sure.
want to be a star actor. Okay, for you to be a director, you have to be great at every aspect of it. So therefore, you start off with sweeping, right? You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
what I mean by that is, if you want to work at Florida Film House, more than likely you're going to start at an internship level or a low level, and you're going to work your way up because that's what you become. When everybody on our team, like we also like, there's a lot of people that come there for talent, and all of the Florida Film House people also do freelance, and we pull upon each other for gigs and stuff, right? So if someone comes to the studio, they see you there sweeping, they're like, "What's up with the new kid?" I'm like, "He's been here for 2 weeks, he's been consistent." They're like, "Okay, cool, I'm gonna get him on a production being a PA." Right? And so then he comes on a production, does a good job on the PA, he gets hired again as a PA. Then the other guys start hiring him as a PA. Then they say, "Yo, you come over here, I'm gonna show you how to be an AC." And he starts working with the cameras and pulling focus and cleaning cameras, second AC and problems, cleaning lenses, whatever. He's second AC. Now he's on second AC. Now he does works with the first AC. So it just becomes a thing where it's real.
Yep.
But you have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort and you have to perform. Right. And then you work out where you end up. Like where you end up is it's just real. Like, and then a lot of our people, a lot of our talent does leave the market, unfortunately, which is still good though, because they go off and do great things. But like my last assistant, she's doing a TV show and she's now the AD for Kiki Palmer in Atlanta.
Wow.
And yeah, my assistant before that, she is a big producer for Insomniac, which is Live Nation in
Hmm.
LA now. Right. So that's what happens. They, sometimes they gotta go because that's where the money might be. And it's understandable. They go and they make their money, but they're still out there and they're still part of our whole South Florida film community, even though they might be in LA or New York or Atlanta. And whenever we're shooting in those areas, we have that support, you know?
Well, and it's really important what you're talking about. The biggest challenge I think we have with our up and comers is that it's consistency. Like they may get a gig or two, but then what do they do in those months when they're still waiting for their next one? But when they kind of fall under your umbrella, as you explained, there's consistent work there because you guys have a lot of different things going on, and that allows them to stay in the industry because I think that takes people out of our industry too early because they say, I want to be eventually become a full-time, director or producer or writer or whatever, but you got to pay the bills. And if
Mm-hmm.
there's years that go on between the start and when they get to that desired role, they got to pay the bills. And if they don't have consistent work in the industry that's helping them, they're going to go find something else. And that's what we see too
Right.
much. But
Right.
getting them under your umbrella, like you said, the consistency of going from this project to the next one to the next one allows them to stay and learn.
Yeah. And the thing about it also is that what works for them though, they have to be very fluid, right? So like today you might be a script supervisor, and tomorrow you might be a grip, and the next day you might be doing props and art. Like it just you have to be very hands-on and ready to kind of go with the flow. In Miami, I feel like we create the most, what they call six men, right? It's like we have so many people on our team that are just versatile,
Yep.
right? Like, because you have to be to say to be, even as a PA, you find yourself in every department on a feature film sometimes because they might be short or whatever. So I think that the good thing about a lot of the guys that come out of our Florida Film House team is that they're very versatile, right? They're very versatile. They know how to use the camera, they know how to edit, they know how to do audio, they know how to do grip, they know how to do a little bit of props, everything because you never know what you're going to do today, right? And you just got to go where we need you at, and there'll be somebody to watch you and see you through it. And the difference between that though is like in LA and these big markets, somebody might do 20 years of just one job,
Right.
so they consider like real specialists. Where in Miami, you might bounce around a little bit. But you're trying to work your way up to being a director. I think there's more opportunities for young people in South Florida to become a director than it is in some of these bigger markets that people think they have to go to become a director
Yeah.
because of that way of how we move, right? So I think South Florida is about to be a very special place in film like right now it's starting to happen where we're able to monetize on a low level for our content. That's where you have to grow it from. You have to grow it from the 150,000 and lower content.
Yep.
That's how you nurture your community. And as the community grows, then, everything just gets bigger,
Right.
So
Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about this with the urban, or the worldwide urban distribution, as well as the film festival. You guys are dedicated to propelling content that traditionally may not receive mainstream exposure, and that includes historically underrepresented communities. How have you seen the impact of this representation growing through the last, half decade or so?
I mean, it's grown dramatically. I remember when I first went to the European film market in Berlin. I went there and there was 40,000 people at least. I probably saw less than 5 African Americans. I pre-scheduled, say 80 meetings. So the thing is that you pre-schedule your meetings online with your secretary and all kinds of stuff. So they have like the system you pre-register your meetings. So I would go to the meetings and people did not know that I was Black, right?
Mm,
And these are people from different countries, right? So a lot of times their English wasn't even strong enough to kind of like be polite. They'd be like, "Oh no, no, I'm sorry, no blacks, no blacks," right?
oh,
And you'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, no, look, I'm selling a love story," right? And then after they start talking to you and you just show them the content anyways, they're like, "Oh, that looks good," and then they kind of get into it. And now over time, I've developed beautiful relationships with most of those people that were acting kind of weird at the beginning,
yep,
and they were just being weird. They just weren't knowledgeable, and they felt like that content didn't monetize in their community. Which, if it doesn't monetize, why waste your time?
right.
Understandable, it's just business, right? So now over time, the cultures have started to merge. People are starting to realize that other people are interested in other cultures. And now it's starting to go, right? So this is how this really started happening. Like I can tell you, there's been a huge difference in the last 7 or 8 years. Huge difference. I say Netflix probably has a lot to do with it, and big outlets like this, because Netflix is forcing this upon us, right? Because they're scrambling for content all over the world to feed this machine they created,
Yep.
right? So they're pulling content from the Turkish, from Korea, from everywhere they can get content from, and we're accepting it. Like we're like, because we're curious, we're like, well, Koreans, let's see what they got going on, and the
Hmm.
content looks phenomenal, right? And the Turkish have great stories, and the English have differences. Europe, but we love it. We're into all these different cultures, and the content is starting to thrive. So that's also starting to work out for us as well, because now doors that were not open, say 8, 10 years ago, are starting to open now. And then another thing that kind of hit kind of hard for us here locally was when that Moonlight movie went out. I saw a difference between one year being at Berlin to the next year.
Hmm.
Because they're like, oh, like Moonlight. They had something to relate it to, right? Some of them were like, oh, yes, like Straight Outta Compton. Like all they need is a couple big hits.
Yep.
Black Panther. These are big hits to them, right? So that told them, okay, there is an opportunity for the content to monetize in my market. And then now the streaming revenue allows it where there's little risk. So what I mean by that is, okay, so you can put your content on a streaming platform, say in Europe, right? Like say Canal Plus, or one of these big streaming companies in Europe, and you can do your own marketing. And if it does well, it does well. And if it doesn't do well, then oh well. It's not as much risk for the distribution company as it used to be,
Right.
because now they're taking way more content because they have to try everything, because their industry is changing on them as well.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's more about quantity than quality, like than it used to be. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities in the international space for distribution. And I think that people are starting to open their eyes to the possibilities of different types of content coming into their region.
That makes sense. Now, you and I spoke on the topic of diversity for an edition of our professional development series, Film Florida Friday, all the way back in 2021. It's hard to believe it's been that long already. But do you
Right.
think there has been meaningful change in diversity in our industry in the last few years?
Absolutely. I mean, things are always changing, right? And things are normally progressing, especially I think here in America, and really worldwide. But especially like the Black Lives Matter movement, you can see there was a huge push in Hollywood and in, I would say even corporate, to make sure that there's more diversity in certain spaces, inclusion. and it basically it kind of spiked for a second, and then it's now starting to normalize again.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that when it did spike, it still did well shows that the representation registers,
Yeah.
right? And I would like to see that happen now with other demographics as well, right? Like I think that is doing well. Like say, like I think like people are getting more used to seeing, you know, black and white people together in content, and I see they're starting to infuse the Latin as well. And then of course the, you know, the different LGBT community is all of it's coming together, and it's naturally doing well, right? But there's also still other communities that you're not going to see very, like, I don't see it very often, like, you know, Native Americans, different stuff. And I think that their time is coming. It's just finding the right piece of content maybe to kind of explode it. And even like the Latin American content, I think that the Latin American urban content, like it hasn't even started. And when it does start, that's going to be a huge boom as well, right? And you know, and I'm excited for that as well. So
And now, given the continuous evolution of technology and practices in the industry, how have you seen the needs of first-time filmmakers evolve? I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about it being much easier, but you know, you're teaching these kids. Think about what it was the first time you did the youth versus now. Talk a little bit about how that has changed.
I mean, we were teaching them on red cameras before. Now we can teach them on Sony A7 threes because the content looks is matches like it's almost movie. It's like movie quality, right? So like, and then the editing programs with the AI in it now, like, you know, we used to have to teach them how to like clamp and sync the audio. And now it does it automatically. So I mean, everything just moves faster, right? Technology allows everyone's is the programs are more user friendly. The kids get on the programs and you see them, like you put them on the little program, you give them the little Adobe login, you give them a little laptop, you tell them to edit a piece, and you give it to them on the weekend. And you see them on Tuesday, and you look at the content, you're like, yo, what kind of effect is that? What is this? What is that? They're like, oh yeah, I was just playing with it. And to them, they just flow through things so much smoother because they're growing up with all this technology. So it's just natural to them.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, it's very important that I bring these young, beautiful minds into my group because they bring that energy to my editing suites that keeps us kind of current. Because it's hard to keep up with all this unless you're of that,
Right.
right? So yeah, like the programs now have allowed, like I mean, I like I said, the one kid that came in, his name is Yandel, who now is teaching the youth program. When my partner Blah doesn't edit, he's a very respected story editor. Like everybody loves him. Like people come there from everywhere. Story editor, right? And he lays down a story. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but let Yandel touch it. And it's like, it's like what? Talking about the kid? Let the kid touch it. Because if the kid touches it, he'll put a little extra sauce on it. And like say we have champs as one of our clients, right? So like we'll like do some behind the scenes clips, and you know, of course, you know, Blah might put down a cool story, and then the kid will come and sauce it up, and we sit at the chat. They're like, "Yo, we love it," and I'm like, "Yo, Blah, they love the sauce. I mean, the story's there, but they really love the sauce." And so it's like, you know, these kids, I mean, and these programs. And the thing is, you know, a lot of times I hear a lot of filmmakers, you know, they get a little frustrated or you get like, I don't know, maybe concerned with AI and
Yep.
all this technology and if they're going to take out our industry. Look, creative is creative. You know, I mean, even if there's like these you gotta look at these as tools. These are just tools, like how we have the cameras have gotten better, the computers have gotten better. Okay, so now the programs have gotten better, you know, so it allows you to do more and be better and be more creative and be able to move faster. That's how you have to see it. Like it's just a tool, right? So I mean, filmmaking is not going anywhere. There's nothing but room for opportunity, and I'm excited about all of it. We're actually right now looking at getting a new space. Like when we build out from the space that we're now, we've been in our space for a long time, but we're partnering with a technology company that if we get the new space, we're going to do it with an urban, like a technology company that's, I mean, they're just teched out. I mean, everything about them from new ventures to, you know, just all tech based, right? And it's one of my mentors, Ted Lucas, and he's been killing it in the tech space. And it would just be perfect for us to be together because that's going to allow us to be more effective, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm given everything you're involved with, I'm sure you get this question a lot. What's your advice you give to first-time filmmakers or people that want to get involved in the industry?
I say just for one, I mean, start just being creative, going at it, right? But map out from where you want to start to where you want to go, build your relationships, get with teams like the teams at Florida Film House, or any team like that, like any team of just young creatives or just creatives, period, that are working together as a team. And creative people want to teach. We want to help. We want to teach. We want to see the next group come up. We want to work with the next young great minds. That's kind of like a natural thing in creativity because you like to create. So you like to create the next star, right? So get with a group of people that you can learn from, manage your scheduling, keep your cost of living at a good point because, like you said, there's ups and downs in this film industry. So don't go and buy you have a couple of good months or whatever, and you go get a new car. No. Stay in the little hoopty, stay in the little Honda. Maybe grab an efficiency somewhere. Keep your cost of living low so that you can allow yourself not to have the stresses, and you can take the opportunities when they arise. Right? If you put yourself in a hard, you get a condo in Brickell and you got a new car. Now you have a certain cost of living that's going to dictate your decision making,
Right.
and that might sometimes deviate you from opportunities you should have took, especially in this journey of becoming a filmmaker. Because it's a journey. You have to look at it like it's going to take you some years to really reach your goals, and then you just get with the right people and go at it.
Yeah.
Start creating.
I mean, that's actually a great piece of advice, the cost of living part, because a lot of decisions are made based on the checkbook rather than the long-term goals of a career. So, okay, so we have talked about Florida Film House, worldwide urban distribution, First Take Youth Program, and the Urban Film Festival. How do people find out more about them? I mean, are there websites, social media, everything you can remember? Throw the kitchen sink at people so they can follow up.
Look, so there's definitely websites for everything, but websites have become like we still use them, but everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on social media, right? So
Yep.
I mean, if you look at Instagram, our First Take is First Take Youth. That's our Instagram account. For Florida Film House, it's Florida Film House. And for Urban Film Festival, it's Urban Film Festivals with an S at the end, right? Mine's is Marco Mall. Everything is just as simple as it sounds. We keep everything just plain Jane simple, right? So it's easy to find us on all the social media. And really the best way to get at us is on social media. Like if you DM us, we respond right back. It's probably gonna be me or like one of my 3 or 4 partners, people that work with me on regular that are on top of that. And we're always looking for like cool people to come aboard and take the journey with us, So we're always open to that. And right now we're going back into filming movies again. So we're looking to do 3 to 4 films a year at least. Hopefully we're going to be doing 3 to 4 our films a year that we executive produce, and then maybe like 2 or 3 for other companies as well. So we're really trying to put that focus on the filmmaking, the youth program, the film festival, and then of course the distribution.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So Marco, I really appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing all the great things you're doing in Florida. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for being on the Film Florida podcast.
Thank you for having me. And also thank you guys for, having these type of outlets. Like Film Florida has been an ongoing, amazing outlet in giving filmmakers content, information. You guys do market, you guys do so much. You guys allow us to grow in our industry, right? And I think that, it's very important that everyone that is not tuned in and not on board with Film Florida, you have to understand that we're going to get to this together, right? Like it's going to take all of us working together, all the different counties, the whole state, everybody to really maximize the opportunities we can in film. So it's very important that, organizations like Film Florida are there to help us, and we have to support them as well.
Very, very well said. Couldn't have said it better myself, and I appreciate the kind words for the organization. Thanks so much, Marco.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org and like or follow our social media pages. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. Please also consider going to our website and donating $20.24 for our 2024 fundraising campaign. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at filmflorida.creator-spring.com, and please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.